It was a sunny day when suddenly the skies over the United States were ablaze. A violent solar storm more powerful than anything mankind had ever experienced was hurling towards our planet. That was in 1859, and if experts are to be believed, the next violent solar storm is imminent. We have to ask ourselves now, could the sun destroy the Earth in 2025? It sounds almost too crazy to be true, but we must expect chaos that the old world order will not survive. In 1859, people didn't even know what was happening at first. They only perceived the unusual play of light, which was comparable to enormous northern lights. The fire in the sky was caused by myriads of charged particles rushing towards the Earth with incredible speed. The sky, which normally glows in soft shades of blue and white, became a vivid canvas of red, green, and purple. At first, it was as if a painter had conjured a masterpiece on the sky with vibrant colors. In the southern states of the U.S., prospectors looking for riches in the midday heat were surprised by this unexpected light show. Some thought morning had dawned again in a surreal explosion of color. Others believed the sky was on fire and a great fire had begun. Panic broke out in the cities, and the streets filled with people looking upward. Some stretched their hands to the sky, thinking that divine Armageddon had come upon the globe. People experienced awe and pure fear. The technology of the time was not prepared for such a phenomenon. Telegraph lines sparkled and crackled as if they suddenly took on a life of their own. Some telegraph stations even reported sparks shooting out of their equipment as if possessed by an invisible spirit. Messages were interrupted, and communication between cities came to a complete halt. But despite the initial fear and confusion, people soon found comfort in the beauty of this natural phenomenon. Families gathered on their porches, children pointed to the sky with wondering eyes, and couples held hands as they watched the celestial spectacle. It became a moment of pause, reflection, and fellowship. The spectacle lasted for just under 5 days, from August 28th to September 2nd, 1859, and then the storm subsided. The Carrington event, or the day the sky was on fire, became a significant historical event. When the storm subsided and the sky returned to its normal blue, people were reassured. They had realized how small they were compared to the vast universe and how wonderful and unpredictable nature can be. A British astronomer named Richard Carrington had observed a coronal mass ejection from the sun shortly before the event and had quite correctly linked this event to the violent geomagnetic storm. However, since communication had completely broken down regionally, it took a while for everyone to know what was really behind the storm. In science, the geomagnetic storm of 1859 is now known as the Carrington event. Among ordinary people, stories about the day the sky was on fire were passed down from generation to generation. From a poetic or metaphysical standpoint, the play of colors was a living testament to the power and beauty of our sun. To this day, the violent solar storm reminds us that despite all our technology and knowledge, we are still children of the universe, marveling in awe at the wonders it has to offer. The Carrington event was almost 200 years ago. None of us has experienced a comparable solar storm, but that could soon change. It's only a matter of time. The next solar storm will be devastating. Solar storms are caused by complex magnetic activity on the surface of the sun, especially sunspots and solar flares. When these magnetic energies are released, they hurl charged particles into space. This phenomenon is called coronal mass ejection, or KEE for short. These charged particle streams of electrons and protons hurtle through space at tremendous speeds and then strike the Earth's magnetic field. Normally, the Earth's magnetic field intercepts most of the particles. In fact, our planet has quite a sophisticated system for dealing with these particle bombardments. The magnetic field intercepts the currents and directs them along the magnetic field lines to the polar regions. This process is responsible for the beautiful phenomenon of the auroras, or aurora borealis in the north and aurora australis in the south. The particles are moved back and forth in a kind of magnetic bubble until they have lost power and become harmless. However, our magnetic shield can only handle a certain amount of particles. If there are more, they slip through the protective mechanism and enter lower layers of the Earth's atmosphere. Humans don't mind the particles quite as much, though experts and biomedical scientists suggest that about 75% of the population is able to physically feel solar storms. Most, however, don't even notice. Much worse is the effect on electronic systems, satellites, and communication networks. We now live in a world where almost nothing works without electricity and electrically based communications. Scientists monitor solar activity with satellites like the Solar Dynamics Observatory or the Solar and Heliospheric Observatory around the clock. These facilities observe the sun's activity and collect data on its activities. They capture images of the Earth's surface at different wavelengths, allowing them to identify sunspots, solar flares, and coronal mass ejections. By analyzing this data, scientists can make predictions about possible solar storms practically. In the past, the sun's activities have been shown to follow certain cycles. The eruptions and storms thus became predictable. However, despite these advanced technologies and methods, predictions about solar storms are not always accurate. The sun remains an extremely complex and dynamic system, and many of its processes are not yet fully understood. In addition, solar events can evolve rapidly and unexpectedly. Another factor is the time it takes for a coronal mass ejection to reach Earth, which can vary. This makes it difficult to predict the exact timing and intensity of an impending geomagnetic storm. The Carrington event of 1859 was like an exceptional storm. Since we lack comparative data, it's difficult, if not impossible, to predict when such an unusual storm will occur again. The only certainty is that it will come, and possibly as early as 2025. The global catastrophe is imminent. In our modern world, we depend on technology more than ever. Satellites circle overhead, providing us with communications, navigation, and weather data. The Internet connects continents and cultures in real time. Our infrastructure, from power grids to organizational and financial systems, is digitized and interconnected. These advances have left us vulnerable on a side that no one really wants to acknowledge. Everyone knows the devastating storm is coming, but everyone also hopes our civilization will weather it. We can ask ourselves why we do not prepare or protect ourselves better. This question is easily answered. We can't go back. Our society, the economy, research, all areas of our life are moving unchangeably towards digitization and mechanization. It was a sunny day when abruptly the skies over the joined-together states were on fire. A savage sun-based storm, more effective than anything mankind had ever experienced, was throwing towards our planet. That was in 1859, and in case specialists are to be accepted, the following rough sun-oriented storm is up and coming. We ought to inquire ourselves presently, seem the sun annihilate the soil in 2025? It sounds nearly as well insane to be genuine, but we must anticipate chaos that the ancient world arranged will not survive. In 1859, individuals didn't indeed know what was happening to begin with. They, as it were, seen the unordinary play of light, which was comparable to colossal northern lights. The fire within the sky was caused by heaps of charged particles hurrying towards the soil with unimaginable speed. The sky, which regularly shines in delicate shades of blue and white, got to be a distinctive canvas of ruddy green and purple. To begin with, it was as if a painter had invoked a magnum opus on the sky with vibrant colors. Within the southern states of the U.S., miners trying to find wealth within the early afternoon warm were shocked by this unforeseen light appear. A few thought morning had unfolded once more in a dreamlike blast of color. Others accepted the sky was on fire and an extraordinary fire had started. Freeze broke out within the cities, and the lanes filled with individuals looking upward. A few extended their hands to the sky, considering that divine Armageddon had come upon the globe. People experienced wonderment and unadulterated fear. The innovation of the time was not arranged for such a wonder. Transmit lines shone and crackled as in case they all of a sudden took on a life of their possess. A few transmit stations indeed detailed flashes shooting out of their gear as in case had by an imperceptible soul. Messages were hindered, and communication between cities came to a total end. But in spite of the introductory fear and perplexity, people soon found consolation within the magnificence of this normal wonder. Families accumulated on their yards. Children pointed to the sky with pondering eyes, and couples held hands as they observed the ethereal display. It got to be a minute of stop, reflection, and fellowship. The exhibition kept going for fair beneath 5 days, from Admirable 28th to September 2nd, 1859, and at that point the storm died down. The Carrington occasion, or the day the sky was on fire, got to be a critical, verifiable occasion. When the storm died down and the sky returned to its ordinary blue, individuals were consoled. They had realized how little they were compared to the tremendous universe and how brilliant and erratic nature can be. A British space expert named Richard Carrington had watched a coronal mass discharge from the sun in no time sometime recently, the occasion, and had very accurately connected this occasion to the savage geomagnetic storm. In any case, since communication had totally broken down territorially, it took a whereas for everybody to know what was truly behind the storm. In science, the geomagnetic storm of 1859 is presently known as the Carrington occasion. Among standard individuals, stories around the day the sky was on fire were passed down from era to era. From a poetic or supernatural angle, the play of colors was a living confirmation to the control and magnificence of our sun. To this day, the savage sun-based storm reminds us that in spite of all our innovation and information, we are still children of the universe, marveling in awe at the ponders it has got to offer. The Carrington occasion was nearly 200 a long time back. None of us has experienced a comparable sun-based storm, but that might before long alter. It's as it were a matter of time. The following sun-powered storm will be destroying. Sun-powered storms are caused by complex attractive movement on the surface of the sun, particularly sunspots and sun-powered flares. When these attractive energies are discharged, they heave charged particles into space. This marvel is called coronal mass launch, or CME for brief. These charged molecule streams of electrons and protons jump through space at huge speeds and after that strike the Earth's attractive field. Ordinarily, the Earth's attractive field mediation most of the particles. In reality, our planet has very advanced framework for managing with these molecule bombardments. The attractive field intercepts the streams and coordinates them along the attractive field lines to the polar districts. This prepare is dependable for the lovely wonder of the auroras, or aurora borealis within the north and aurora australis within the south. The particles are moved back and forward in a kind of magnetic bubble until they have lost power and become harmless. Be that as it may, our magnetic shield can, as it were, handle a certain sum of particles. In case there are more, they slip through the defensive component and enter lower layers of the Earth's climate. People do not intellect the particles very as much, in spite of the fact that specialists and biomedical researchers propose that around 75% of the populace is able to physically feel sun-based storms. Most, in any case, do not indeed take note.